The charity single Do They Know It's Christmas has become the fastest selling song of 2014 and is sure to hit the #1 spot on the charts. But many have said the Band-Aid 30 Ebola fundraiser exploits negative stereotypes of Africa and is patronising. So it's no wonder a faux development campaign recorded in 2012 is seeing a renaissance.
It's kind of just as bad as poverty, if you ask me. Sunlight puts smiles on people's faces. People don't ignore starving people, so why should we ignore cold people? Frostbite kills too. Africa, we need to make a difference in Norway. We need to collect our radiators, ship them over there, and spread some warmth, spread some light, and spread some smiles. Say yes to Radiate.
The spoof single Radiate Africa for Norway was produced by the Norwegian Students and Academics International Assistance Fund, or SAIH. Well, joining me on the phone live from Norway is Kristoffer Kinge, Vice President of SAIH. Kristoffer, thanks for joining us. The first question is, what influenced you to make the Radiate video?
Well, thank you for having me. Well, in SAI, we actually for several years worked with what we call our view of the South. Because, especially Africa in the Western media and in fundraising campaigns keeps getting portrayed as, this black, dark continent filled with hopelessness and warlike men, passive women, and hungry children. And we want to do something about that. And then once we listened to the Do They Know It's Christmas, we kind of came up with this response. So the first Do They Know It's Christmas song is actually kind of the primary inspiration source for Radiate.
Of course, we're in the headlines at the moment, and part of the reason, I guess, why we're seeing renewed interest in your video is Band-Aid 30. So my question to you is, what are your views, both individually and as an organisation?
Well, the first time I saw it, I actually thought it was a parody of the first one, because it's still quite bad. I mean, we've seen the first one was made 30 years ago, but we keep kind of hearing the same story. With a lot of stereotypes portrayed. All these nonsensical questions and statements, they keep contributing to what I believe is a dangerous single story Africa as this helpless continent. We're all countries and more or less the same. But the fight against Ebola in Western Africa symbolizes the opposite, because what we hear about on the radio now is dominated by how Westerners can help out, and yes we do, and that's really great. But we have to realize that by far the most important effort to stop the virus is led by civil servants, doctors and nurses from Western Africa.
One thing you have to point out, though, in regards to it being patronising, that's quite a subjective statement. So you, as a Norwegian individual and also as an organisation, how can you say what is promoting and helping and what is actually patronising to Africans?
Well, I think that what we need to realise is that we kind of we keep seeing the same stereotypes. We have to renew how we see Africa, because when we hear about the same story that we heard for 6 years, it really influences our view of Africa as the continent. And no, it's not just us saying this. It's numerous writers, politicians, activists, and different organizations from the Global South have for several years criticized how African countries keep getting portrayed in the Western media.
It's interesting that your organisation actually started off, am I right, to protest apartheid, or as an anti-apartheid movement, and now you focus on development issues. Is this the new frontier, I guess, of racism and international development?
Well, I think we started as a solidarity organization, and we're still a solidarity organization. We have about 40 partners organizations in 6 countries in Latin America and Southern Africa. So they're part of the voice that we're raising. But I think we're kind of the problem here, how we see Africa. So that's why it's important to have this informational campaign here in Norway and in the West.
You shot half the video in Norway and half of it in Africa. Was it difficult to find people in Africa who wanted to partake in it?
We actually shot the entire video in South Africa, in Durban. It was shot by a company called iKind, and they found most of the people. But it's a funny story, because the images that we got from Norway were actually we got from the Norwegian Broadcasting Network. But we had a hard time finding images of freezing Norwegian children, because we'd have to ask their parents. But I kind of question whether these fundraising campaigns have to do the same thing in Africa.
Kristoffer, thank you very much for joining us. It's now time for us to go back to Charles.
And briefly, Jason, it's a very different view on helping Africa, isn't it?
It is indeed. I mean, it's saying that, you know, there's a stereotype that we're using and it needs to change. But, I mean, it's hugely debatable, of course. And, again, at that point I made, it's very subjective about who finds what patronizing.
Jason Mansoray, thank you very much.